Good evening. Newly obtained surveillance video shows the moment that a Lear jet landing at Scottsdale Airport slammed into a parked jet there. We're learning the Lear jet belonged to Vince Neil, the lead singer of the rock band Motley Crue. A spokesperson for Neil says he was not on board. The crash, though, did leave one person dead and 3 others hurt. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Mark Curtis.
And I'm Kariba Devine. 12 News journalist Gabriela Becerra has been following this tragedy all evening long. And she is joining us live from the Scottsdale Airport. And Gabby, you've learned some new details tonight about who was on that plane.
That's right, Mark Caribe. It's a much more quiet scene out here right now as emergency crews have left, but those planes remain, though it is hard to see in the dark. In the last hour, Motley Crue confirmed the pilot died in the crash. The co-pilot, Vince Neil's girlfriend, and her friend were injured but do not have life-threatening injuries. The National Transportation Safety Board is on scene investigating what exactly went wrong.
To go around, we just had an emergency.
A small jet arriving at Scottsdale Airport Monday afternoon scrapes the runway before slamming into a parked plane. The pilot was instantly killed. The co-pilot and 2 passengers were taken to the hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries.
Our thoughts and prayers for the individuals on the aircraft. It's certainly a tragedy that occurred.
Airport officials say a Learjet 35A was coming from Austin, Texas, and attempting to safely land at the Scottsdale Airport when officials suspect something went wrong with the plane's landing gear.
It appears that the left main gear failed upon landing, resulting in the accident.
The Learjet crashed into a Gulfstream 200 business jet parked on the off-ramp. The Learjet is owned by Motley Crue's lead singer Vince Neil. He was not on the plane. His girlfriend and her friend were passengers. In a statement, Neil's attorney tells us in part, Mr. Neil's thoughts and prayers go out to everyone involved, and he is grateful for the critical aid of all the first responders. Motley Crue adding, quote, "Our hearts go out to the families of both the pilot who lost his life and the passengers who suffered injuries." Jet Pros LLC, a private jet charter company based in Scottsdale, says their Gulfstream G200 business jet has external damages. They say no one on board was hurt. In a statement, the director of operations tells 12 News in part, "We are saddened to hear about the lives lost and injured. Our condolences go out to the family members of those by this terrible accident." And the Scottsdale Airport remains closed tonight. Officials are asking people to avoid the area while the NTSB investigates. And Motley Crue announced they will soon have a way for people to support the pilot who died in this crash. Live in Scottsdale, Gabriela Becerra, 12 News.
Gabby, thanks. Let's bring in meteorologist Chris Dunn, who is also an experienced commercial pilot. Horrifying video when you see it and you see that plane just going really out of control, veering towards that parked aircraft. I thought for sure I would see an explosion when those two collided.
Well, I think the way that they collided, it helped the situation because the fuel is contained in the wings in most aircraft. And so with one approaching from behind, they didn't really rupture the fuel tank, so there was no source of fuel for a fire. So that was the good news, if there is any good news out of this situation.
And so it was the landing gear, right, that failed on that aircraft. I mean, how difficult is it as a pilot to try to control a plane that has faulty landing gear? Very
difficult. And they probably had no idea that something was going to go wrong with the landing gear, because there are indications in the cockpit that will give you, it is part of every pre-flight checklist, gear down, 3 in the green. They probably have 3 in the green, indicating all 3 landing gear were down, but it was when they touched down that the left landing gear apparently collapsed, causing that directional control issue and an abrupt left turn off of the runway. You can see all of the rocks and the dust and everything being kicked up as they departed the runway, crossed the taxiway, and hit that parked airplane.
So you're more or less, as the pilot, a helpless passenger at that point. There's not much you can do to control the aircraft.
Yeah.
As an experienced pilot, what is it like when something happens? Maybe it's not the landing gear, but it's a bird strike or it's something else. Talk about the startle factor.
Oh, it's definitely real, and that has happened to me before as well. When something happens and you totally don't expect it, there's going to be a 5, 6, 7 second delay at least when you realize what's going on, what's happening here. And then when you start to take action and do something about it, there's very little that you can do in this situation. The flight controls would be non-effective because there's just not enough airflow over the surface of the flight controls. So you can't really use the rudder. You can't really use the ailerons to control the direction of the airplane. And with one of the landing gear collapsed, it's pulling to the left so hard, there's very little you can do to have any directional control of the airplane. And so what happens is you'll end up running into something, and unfortunately it was another airplane at a fairly high rate of speed.
Yeah. But you always think, you know, it could have always been worse, you know, just depending on the circumstances. We had a lot of jets there for WM Phoenix Open. I'm sure, you know, they were all over the place at that time, so which just wrapped up yesterday. So yeah. You just never know, like how much worse it could have been. All right, Chris, thank you so much for your expertise for the second time in just a couple of weeks here.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.